In Alberta, efforts are continuing to contain an oil spill along the Red Deer River. A pipeline leak about 100 kilometers northwest of Calgary spewed almost 500,000 liters of oil into a tributary of the Red Deer River. The river supplies drinking water to several communities, including Red Deer. Crews near Sundre, Alberta are trying to contain the impact of the 475,000 liters of sour crude threatening the Red Deer River system. That pipeline broke Thursday night. Residents now dealing with the consequences. Ila Johnston lives just north of Sundre and joins us now by phone. So, Ila, just how has this oil spill affected you and your property?
On Thursday evening, when the odors came in, we ended up going to the hospital because I couldn't breathe properly. And then the doctor wouldn't let us go home until they were given an all clear, which never came.
So what's the air like right now?
Right now it's rainy and cool, so it's tending to keep the odors away. But as soon as it warms up again and they start disturbing it, it will be back again, and we'll have to leave home again.
And what about oil? Can you see oil on your land?
Yes. My husband did take a trip down and look, and it's because the river was flooding our land when this happened, it's all over the lower area of our property.
And what do you think that will mean when you say it's all over the lower area of your property? What's the size of it, and what's that going to do just to the property?
Well, we probably will never get it cleaned up. It will be years before it'll really be usable. When there's been other spills, we've always felt that the cleanup wasn't adequate.
Yeah. So there have been other spills?
Yes, there have.
Yeah.
So, lots of them.
So I can just hear it in your voice. You're kind of used to this. But, you know, when you talk about air that makes you so physically ill you have to leave, at a certain point, this must be very distressing.
Oh, it is, yes, and it's actually destroying my ability to breathe. With each one I get, seems like I get a little worse.
So what are you doing today? Is there anything that you can do to try and contain this spill or start cleanup, or are you seeing crews working hard to deal with this?
It's my understanding that they're down at Glenifer Lake at the Dixon Dam, and that's where they're starting because they feel that they've contained it there. So we will have to wait until they come further this way.
I gather as well there's some debate about where the oil is actually coming from. Do you know? Where do you see it?
Well, we understood that people believe it was in the Jackson Creek, which also runs through our property, and we can see that from the top of the hill. It isn't in the creek, but it is probably an area close to that creek.
So, as you say, you've experienced spills in the past. Have you any idea how long this one is going to remain a critical situation for you and your neighbors?
I believe it'll take them all summer.
Really?
Because, as I say, some of the lower areas was already in flood, so it's all over the place. It's not just on the river bank where it normally runs.
And Ila, when you say, you know, when the weather changes, chances are the smell in the air is going to be impossible for you again. Are you already making plans as to, you know, you're going to have to leave home?
Yes, I'll have to leave home. It doesn't matter what my plans are. I just won't be able to stay.
Yeah. And do you have some help finding temporary accommodation?
I would probably have to stay with family. When we were hospitalized, there should have been some arrangements made for us to stay in a hotel, and we didn't even hear back from them, even though the hospital had called to make arrangements that they would be contacted when it was safe to return home or when they had arranged for a place, and they didn't do it. We were left high and dry. And I understand some other people have been given hotel rooms.
And were other people hospitalized as well?
Yes. We had one neighbor that experienced a heart attack. He'd had surgery approximately a month before, and that stress just, whether it was the physical stress or the odors that sent him back in with another heart attack, and he had to have surgery again yesterday.
You know, what a horrible situation. Ila, I really appreciate you making time to explain your situation to us and wish you all the very best. And here's hoping the weather continues to be a friend to you and you're not dealing with that horrible air situation again.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you. Take care.
Crews are working to contain an oil spill into Alberta's Red Deer River, 100 kilometers northwest of Calgary. About 475,000 liters leaked out of a pipeline. Communities downstream from the spill have been told not to use the water from the river until further notice. Well, our next guest joins us now with more information on that story. Bruce Beattie is an official with Mountain View County, and he joins us from Sundre, Alberta. So, Bruce, thanks for being with us. Give us a sense of what the situation is there right now.
Well, there was just a briefing at the site down at Glenifer Lake where the main cleanup is taking place. At that point, they have booms in the water, and they're basically trying to just control and contain the spill at that point.
So I understand you've got flooding and you've got rain today, more rain in the forecast. What impact is this weather having on the situation?
Well, certainly the river is high, and if it's not as high as it was during the spill. However, I guess if it keeps raining the way they're talking about, we could have a higher water level, and that will push some of the oil that has been deposited along the banks of the river downstream from the spill farther up into the environment.
And I understand that you've been making your way around the area, surveying the damage. What have you been seeing?
Well, I did visit the area of the Johnsons, who you spoke with yesterday, and certainly, as those pictures described, there's a lot of oil deposited on the banks, on the vegetation, and that's going to certainly, I think, present significant issues in terms of the cleanup and the length of time it'll take for cleanup. As well, certainly there's a lot of odor associated with it. The weather has mitigated that somewhat, but as also was suggested, I expect once that if the weather does change, then there will be a greater problem relative to odor.
How tough is this for residents that are downstream? My understanding is that this is their main water source.
Well, no, that wouldn't be accurate. Most of the people who live along the river or along that stretch generally would use wells. I don't think the groundwater has been impacted to this level, to this point, as far as I'm aware. Red Deer draws its water from the Red Deer River, but that's a long way downstream, and I know that they've been alerted and taking those steps.
Now, this isn't the first time a pipeline has broken in your area. What's making your area prone to this kind of accident?
Well, there are a lot of pipelines in Alberta, and there's a lot in this area. They're anywhere from small diameter pipelines that run between well facilities where the actual production takes place, or pipelines that run to processing facilities. I have 3 or 4 pipelines that run through my farm. They go anywhere from a small 12-inch diameter one to a 36 and a 48-inch gas lines that run about 300 meters from my house. So there are a lot of pipelines in the area, and given the numbers and the frequency, I suppose, we haven't seen a lot of these incidents. It's certainly, but when one of them happens, there are significant consequences.
Do you think anything more can be done to protect the lands and the river system?
Well, I would hope more can be done, because obviously what's working to this point isn't working well when we have an incident like this. So there are a lot of regulations in place. The provincial government is responsible for regulating the industry. So we expect them to carry out those functions and to do that as well as they can. And I guess it's a question of resources to ensure that they're provided with enough resources to do that job. From a municipal perspective, it's our responsibility to make sure that we represent our ratepayers and people like the Johnsons have been affected by this spill, and we will certainly do everything in our power to make sure that not only are they compensated, but the cleanup is done properly.
That's right. We had spoke to Ila Johnston earlier. Bruce, thanks so much for taking the time to speak with us. We really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you.
That's Bruce Beattie.